Welcome to Insight with the Royalty Soapy Awards. Now, the words that people use all the time to describe people like trailblazers, iconic, legend have definitely been overused throughout the years. But the people I'm chatting to today are definitely icons, legends, trailblazers. How are you all doing today?
Good. We're all good. Happy to be here.
Very well, thank you.
Trailblazers, that is the... When I first got the script, I was like, I saw the names and I was like, Trailblazers, because I've grown up watching some of you. I've grown up watching some of your content. Some of your names I know from the title sequences, and I know exactly who you are. So I'm going to introduce you guys from right at the end there. Mama unjani namhlanje?
Oh, ngiyaphila mntanami enkosi kakhulu.
So that is Dr. Lillian Dube, performer and activist. Dr. Ngevej.
From a tea girl, from a domestic servant, from anything you can think of, to doctor, and with the order of Ikamana from the president.
You know, I'm
so blessed.
I'm on my 17th gap year. You can call me a doctor in gap years. So congratulations, you're a doctor.
Thank you, my baby.
Another man who's done incredible things, long CV, Angus Gibson, producer, director, and writer. Hello.
Hi, I'm happy to be in this company.
Wow, what company it is. It's great to have you here. And then Clive Morris, producer, writer, director, you do it all. I grew up watching, and I remember seeing your name at the end there. I remember seeing it growing up. How are you doing here? Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, appreciate it.
I look forward to you sharing your knowledge.
Do my best.
Bongi Ndaba, writer, actress, producer. Before we said action, we were like, do you mind, what do you prefer, in front or behind? You were like, I like to be seen. So she doesn't mind. Very versatile, in front, behind, very, very versatile.
Yeah, I'm not those behind the scenes people who are shy about being, you know, I just love everything about it. In front, behind, that's me. Yes. But I'm just amazed that I'm a trailblazer. Thank you, guys.
No, trailblazer.
I didn't know.
No, I've seen your CV. You're trailblazing. Not even trailblazer, blazing. You're busy doing it. Mama, please tell us about, you mentioned it in the beginning, from domestic tea lady to a doctor, one of the most iconic, well-known performers, activists in the country. Your story is like Ifilin. Like, it's like a movie, which it needs to be done. What made you push on? How did you get into the industry?
You'll never believe this. And thank God, because I didn't stay in school much. I didn't know why we went to school in the first place, except just getting beaten. So I left very early.
When? When was early?
A candlelight junior certificate.
Oh, wow.
And I got a third class only because my mother was coming to Lesotho, because she thought I was at school. Meantime, I was doing my own thing. And when she said, I'm coming end of the year, then I went to a night school. And I passed, at least I didn't fail.
Okay.
Yeah. But the sad thing is, when I eventually wanted to be a nurse, because all my friends were becoming nurses, I couldn't, because I didn't have the qualifications. I didn't know maths. All I knew was history and Latin. And those were my favorite subjects. So I ended up working as a domestic. But that has got to do with Dombas, because I went to school in Vryheid. My home was in Orlando East. I come back, my mother had sold the house, so I didn't have an ID, which we used to call Dombas. Without a Dombas, you couldn't do anything. I was lucky enough to find a very, very good family, the Alberts in Linden, who hired me as a domestic in spite of not having a Dombas. And Mr. Albert was a jailer at number 4. Number 4 is where you call Constitutional Hill today. Whilst I was a domestic, you would have thought I was born to be a domestic. I did everything. I used to take the grandchild, put him on my back, because I couldn't do all the work with the child. You would take the father's pajamas and fuss him. And then when the parents come back to me from work and they knock, I take forever, because now I have to put the child down. Now, the funny thing was, when the parents were already there, the child still wanted to be on my back. And I pretended I didn't know what he was talking about. Lovely, lovely family.
So then how did you get into the industry? How did that happen? From being a domestic worker, not having a Donbass, not having education, and then how did you become one of the most well-known actresses and activists in South Africa?
At school, even though I left early, I used to love drama. If we did biblical studies, I would say, you are going to play Jesus, you are going to play Mary, and all that. And at the school where I was at, we were learning from a hall and writing from our laps. As a result, we used to do dramas, and the community used to support us. And through that, we were able to build a school. If you should go to Lesotho one day in Maseru and ask for Maseru High School, it was as a result of our efforts, because we didn't want any other child not to have desk and a proper school. So I didn't know then that it was a profession. Now, my son, at 12 years old, he says to me, Mama, I heard in the radio, we used to fight over my radio. I used to put my radio on LM radio, and he would always put it on Sesotho, and I wanted to strangle him. And one day he says, Mama, you are losing out. I heard over the radio that on the 31st of May at Auckland Park, there are going to be auditions. I said, for what? He says, for acting. And I said, what are you talking about? Because then I was now working at the flagship, the Greater Men's. Working at Greater Men's was my Mongwanak.
No, yes.
So I said, I've got a job. Why should I go for auditions? Mama, because when I am at the movies, those people act like you, or you act like them, so I think that's where you belong. At 12.
Wow.
So to please my son, and thank God the 31st was a holiday, because they said you must fetch script, I'll help you. I was just pleasing my son, because I didn't know that this can be a profession, because remember, we never had television. It came in the 80s. I go and fetch the script, I read it, I go for auditions. And this Mr. Roots was very proud of me, because those days the Afrikaners knew Sesotho or any black languages at the SABC. So he was impressed. So I went back to my work and forgot about the audition. 3 months later, someone from the SABC comes and fetches me, asks me my name, Lillian Dube, only to find that Mr. Roots from the word-go wanted me. But the black guy said, no, we don't want Zulus. Because of my surname, he concluded I was Zulu. He was so disappointed and sorry that he had blocked me. Meantime, I am Mosotho from Lesotho and happened to know even his relatives.
Oh.
How would you like that?
Came around.
Yeah, and I was so fortunate. I really don't know. I mean, the SABC, maybe they'll tell us one day. I don't know why they did away with dubbing. You know, when we used to do dubbing, you know what dubbing is? Yes. A lot of people took their children to school through dubbing, because even though it was overseas productions, we could make money out of them. Today we watch them and what do we get? Nothing. So I don't know where their head was at, because dubbing used to generate a lot of money for actors, even for them for that matter, because those films were not expensive, but I loved dubbing. I remember doing The Jeffersons, Louis, and that woman was like, always talking and eating, and I would just sit in the studio like this, have my grapes and do it, and do it. But now, the problem came when I told my friends, that's me. I said, that's not you. But they could hear it was my voice because it was amazing. Yeah. And I was fortunate. When I started filming, I shot for the most wonderful, wonderful human being, Jan Scholes. That's where I met Desiree Magraaf, as beautiful and young and hardworking. It was home. We were fed, and then come.
You like your food, but now you mentioned food twice now, Mama. You've said you were eating crepes while you were recording dubbing, and then you were
crepes can be food.
And then you were working hard and eating.
Crepes cannot be food. What I'm saying is today you go on set, except for his set. His set we get well fed. And this one said...
It's getting personal fast.
This one said, you bring your own skaftin.
It has begun.
But what I'm saying, Jan Scholes was so kind, Manak. He was so kind. I remember when we were doing Mopeme, And one day, Desiree and all the other people, and they fed us so well, and bought us beers. And then Hans calls comes. I said, I knew you were coming. I knew you were coming. And they say, shut up, Wena. Because that's who he was. He wanted all the people who work for him to be comfortable, to earn well, and he wanted to know what you did with your money. You must have a house. You must show that he is paying you. And he used to pay us well. And he adored us. And thank God there's no taxman then.
I think there was, it just didn't work very well as well as they work now. So Angus, your CV is great. I've seen a lot of the work that you've done. You've created incredible careers for people, help people do amazing things locally and internationally. How did you get into it? Because you're not the flashiest guy in the world. You don't want to be seen by everyone, but you do incredible work and everyone knows who you are. How did you get into the industry?
When I was at school, I thought, I kind of felt, well, let me make some money and then I'll kind of do what I want to do. So I went to university and I did economics. And I knew in my first day that I'd made a big mistake. And in about April of that year, I went to see a movie. And it was by an Italian filmmaker called Michelangelo Antonioni. It was a film called The Passenger with Jack Nicholson. And it was like I was 17. It was the kind of movie that just like ticked all the boxes for me. And I walked out of there and I thought, to hell, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to make movies. And I assumed that the next year, at the end of the year, I would fail my economics and I could go into movies. But I didn't fail. And so, in fact, I stuck at Wits into my third year, and then I dropped out. So I was very unpopular with my parents. But it had been clear that all I wanted to do was to make movies. I went to film school in Pretoria.
Shame.
Yeah.
I'm joking.
Well, originally I thought, okay, I'm going to do the economics, and then I'm going to leave the country, and I'm going to go to LA or whatever and do film school there. But because I was in disgrace, I didn't go to LA. And also in the interim, I'd become really interested in South Africa. I mean, as an adolescent, it felt like a very claustrophobic world I was growing up in, which was a very white, middle-class world. And in my sort of university years, I'd managed to sort of break out of that space and get a sense of what South Africa was beyond that white suburban world. And so I was interested in that, and that was kind of why I stayed here. And by the time I'd qualified, in fact, I didn't even qualify at film school. I dropped out of there as well, because I started making things while I was at film school. I sort of looked around and I thought, well, it's not an industry that I particularly admire or like. Actually, I didn't like the content that was being made, other than some Afrikaans content that seemed interesting. But I ended up making documentaries for broadcasters in Europe and America. So I kind of wanted to do drama, but it wasn't working for me. And I was so interested in where South Africa was at that point. And in the 80s, I was very engaged with what was happening, and I started making documentaries about that. And I suppose I discovered that real life is kind of an extraordinary, it's where fiction starts in a way. And I suppose the projects that I've done and I like best have a lot to do with the real world and trying to mirror that or reflect what the real world is. So, yeah, I think that's my answer.
All right. Okay, Clive, you've done many things, a lot of hits. You do, just like Angus, you produce, direct, write. Estate's going on right now, it's doing very well, great casts, great to watch. But how did you get into it? Like how did this thing happen to be able to be producing, writing, and directing?
So, my late grandmother was an amateur actress and a comedian. She was she actually Dr. Lillian reminds me of her. Very boisterous. And I used to go watch her doing these amateur shows, and I thought, that's what I want to do. I want to act. So coming from a good Jewish family, my parents tried to talk me out of it.
I'm sure they did.
They wanted me to be a doctor like my daddy.
Or an accountant?
Or an accountant. But I wanted to do drama, so I went to study, also at Pretoria, what's now the University, I think, of Technology. I studied drama, and you know, at the end of your final year, you do auditions. And so we did auditions for all, you know, producers. And this Afrikaans lady came up to me and she said, I've got just the part for you. You're going to be a star. And I thought, well, you know, this is going to be fantastic. What am I going to be? And this is something I haven't really told many people. But she said, I'm starting a children's show. It's called Pumpkin Patch. And I want you to be the dog.
Is it?
So I landed up, my very first part was Wiffles on Pumpkin Patch.
I grew up watching this.
So when I get actors coming to me and they're saying, hey, I'm tired and I'm hot, I said, no, when you spend 18 hours in a dog suit, then you can tell me that you're tired.
How long did you do that for?
I did it for a year, for like 600 Rand a month.
You were rich.
I thought I was
rich.
Yeah. And, but when I was my final year studying drama, I wrote a stage play called Made in South Africa, M-A-I-D. And Roberta Durrant from Penguin Films.
I know her very well.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. Everyone knows Roberta.
Definitely, she hired me a few times.
Yes,
that one.
yeah. Well, she read the script.
I think she paid me 600 Rand a month as lot. I'm joking.
Oh, don't say that. She read the script and she asked me if I would come and write some scripts for her. And she had this idea of a delivery guy. And so that was Valapi. So yeah.
Wow, my favorite.
What?
Yeah, so I wrote Valapi.
So, before we carry on.
Yes.
Velapi is what black parents used to use against black kids why they shouldn't be actors. Because they were like, look at Velapi, so famous everywhere, but died poor. Every black parent, that's always their excuse.
Yeah, don't be an actor.
Don't be an actor.
Yeah,
Look at Velapi.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He was famous.
Ray Trokwana
Yes.
and Sam. Oh, man.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, so that's how I got into directing. Because then the first few were directed by Dani Odendaal, who also mentored me, and Roberta mentored me. And then I directed Valapi, so I was writing and directing. And in those days, there was no head writer, and then this and that. We just used to do everything ourselves. I used to write it, Roberta used to edit it. And then that's what got me in. And then I just felt I wanted to go out on my own, and Roberta let me go. And that was when I started.
I think Roberta's involved in many people's careers somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
Say what you want to say, but she's involved there.
Yeah.
She's given me, she's given me a lot of opportunities.
A lot of people Roberta's helped.
You know that Velapi is on now.
Yes.
And I'm watching it.
No, that was 30,
so beautiful.
over 30 years ago
very
that we
funny.
did that.
Yeah,
And,
Roberta
I
was
loved
good
it.
with comedy.
And one of the episodes happened in a shebeen, so this was 30 years ago. So my wife and I with Sam, we went to a shebeen in Alex, the two whiteys in the shebeen 30 years ago. And yeah, it was just amazing fun.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
That kind of content, and you guys have been involved in a lot of the content that brought my childhood up. It was my childhood. And I was saying yesterday when we were speaking to the writers that so much of the content that you guys have created became our dinner. We would be having dinner and watching it. It would be conversations the next day at school. My mother would be, it was so, it's not like these days, there's so much content out there, but everyone was watching Velapi. Everyone was watching Velapi.
Oh, Velapi.
And anytime, I ride a motorbike now. When I ride a motorbike, people listen like, hey, Velapi. I'm like, this is a motorbike, this is not a delivery bike. So from the days of KZN Theatre and now head writer in Johannesburg, like doing some great things, creating amazing content. You were even, when we said trailblazer, you were just like, oh, me? You are a trailblazer.
Thank you.
How did it happen? What happened from those days, those big leaps?
The big leap was for me coming to Joburg. But starting in theatre was not a big leap. It was just like fun. That's what I did for fun, because I come from a small town. I come from rural areas. We didn't know that there's a career in writing at all. So, but I was always writing since I was 9 years old because my dad and my mom, they wanted us to just sit at home and read books, don't go out and play. So I'll be bored, and all I did was write, even when I was young. But I never thought it was a career. We didn't know at the time. I come from, black school, so we didn't have the opportunities of knowing those things. So I happened to be taken in by the Playhouse. They wanted the young actors, and I was taken in as part of the Playhouse. They had theater professionals were in the theater house of theirs. So we were just like the little kids who would play the characters of young kids. That is when then I knew that I want to study. So I worked a lot at the Playhouse and theater before I went to study drama. Then I decided to go and study. My first professional show was your play, made in the New South Africa.
Really?
Yes,
Oh, you're
I was
joking.
Mrs. Magudulela.
Yes.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, that was my first professional show after
never
I
knew that.
graduated.
Who directed
And what's his name? He's from Cape Town. He was one
Us
of the
Cape
big
Townians are not too bad.
theater directors. I just forget his
Butlin?
name. No, not him. So that's when, then after being at the Playhouse, I went to study. Also because my parents, as much, I didn't have the parents who were against this industry. They just didn't know about it. But my family, they're very academic. So they were like, well, if you're going to do this, study. So I went to study. They were just like, get a degree, because, they want to put on the walls.
Yes.
Those pictures. They were like, all your siblings are doing something. Go study. So I went to study, and then that's when I decided, okay, I need to move to Joburg, because KZN at that time, there was nothing. I mean, now it's better. There was nothing. You had to move to Joburg. And when I came to Joburg, of course, I was auditioning, I found an agent, and then I was fat, and then they told me fat people are not needed on TV. I auditioned and auditioned, no one was casting me, but I was still writing. And in the writing, I happened to submit a play that I wrote to the Market Theatre, and they loved it. And Zeksimda called me, Zeksimda calling me, I nearly flipped over the chair, said, we read what you wrote, can you come see me? And then he mentored me, and my play was at the Market Theatre. Because of that, without my knowledge, so many broadcaster people came to see the play, and they loved what was there. And then I got calls now, like, at that time, it was Generations. They were looking for black writers, because, Generations before was written by white writers. They were looking for black writers, and they said, okay, write a test script. And that's how I got in. Yeah, it was literally from theater to TV.
So let's stay on that topic, representation. How important is it to have the right people in the room? If it's LGBT plus community thing about gays, lesbians, transgenders, black women, how important is it to have the right people in that room writing the scripts?
It's just not even important. It has to happen all the time. It has to happen, because there's just certain things that, a story is universal, but there's just certain things that representation gives more to it, gives certain layers to it, because it's the knowledge of it. It's the nuances, the textures, the tone of it that you can see when it's not there. And you're like, okay, this is there, but it's not 100%. And just the feeling of it is very, very important. And I'm just glad that we're moved a lot towards that position now, to make sure that there's representation in every room. It's not there yet, I'm not gonna lie. It's still a long way to go. But from when we started, there was none. There was none. I remember doing Gazlam, and I did it with white people.
Great show, Gazlam.
And you would discuss certain things, and you have to explain yourself. I've always said, when you are a black person in a room, and now you have to explain your blackness, sometimes it's so annoying, because now I'm explaining my blackness. But it's nice now because there's more black people, so now you don't have to explain yourself a lot.
So over to you, Angus. So you do a lot of work that I think one of your strengths is that you know how to get the right people into the right room, and calling the right people and working with the right people and who will do what. How's that gone with representation and getting the right people into the room? Has it been difficult? Has it been an easy job to do?
Well, I suppose the first writing that I did sort of dramatically, I did together with Tebogo Mahlatsi. So the two of us worked, well, we've been partners for 20 years. So the chemistry in a room is a hugely important thing to me. I don't think our rooms have always been as representative as I would like. And there's a curious thing that goes on. I mean, recently I was working with Chris Q, and
he's great. We had him with the writers talk, and he's just absolutely, he's fire.
Yeah, he's incredible, and he's a great talent. But Christian Blomkamp has just died, and he was an incredibly talented writer. And Chris Q basically said, the best guy in this town to write the shows that I storyline is Christian. And the thing about Christian was that he was a listener and he did research. And I mean, the point is it can be leveled against me. I sort of invariably am working in dramas that explore a black world. And, the question is, are they authentic or aren't they? And if they are authentic, I think it has a fair amount to do with the fact that I am a listener as well. I'm not, I tend not to dominate a conversation. And I don't think it's the ideal. I think that, South Africa is and should move towards a different kind of representation that is even than what is going on now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Doctor?
You want the Panado?
No, Panado. So, for me, you have done incredible work. You've done amazing things, and people have grown up watching you. But I just want to know, there are young people who want to be exactly the person that you are, or you know what I mean? Like, they want to be iconic, they want to be actresses, activists. What's the best advice you've received throughout your career from anyone?
That always makes me laugh, because I never set out to be this Lillian Dube that you see.
Dr. Lillian.
My mother taught me that whatever you do, do well. If you wash dishes, wash them in such a way that someone will say, wow. So that's been my thing. I'm a very lazy person, but you hire me to do anything for you, I'll do it and you'll be very pleased. So for me to be able to say to anyone, they must do this, do that, it's all about passion, my darling, and giving it your all. And with me, going into a film, it wasn't about money. To start with, it was in me, but I never knew I could do it for a living until I did it to please my son, and I've never looked back. And I am very comfortable. Before then, I remember when I was a clerk at Barra, I called someone, and whilst I was holding, he wasn't aware that I'm listening. Lihlangalele la X-ray wants to talk to you. That mad woman in X-ray, I was hurt, very hurt that people see me as a mad person. Guess what? I went into showbiz, nobody called me mad.
Yes, just talented.
I remember when I was doing Call Up and Die. We had fun. We were all mad and nobody called anybody mad. So I'm really in my sweet spot. I want to say children must follow their hearts, what they can do best, because fortunately these days the parents don't see acting as bad. But during my days, even with white people, they disinherited their children for becoming actors. I remember having taken my mother to see Call Up and Die at the Black Sun. After performing, she says to me, where do these people work? I said, Mama, we just worked in front of you. She says, I just saw a bunch of loafers.
I feel you.
That's the beauty of showbiz, Wanaka, is that all of us have got our own baggages and all that. But because of the characters that I have played, they've taken away the pressure on my real life so that my life is happy every day. Yeah, instead of concentrating on this boring, painful life of mine, I'm always doing other people's lives, and I enjoy it. And I'm grateful, because acting is fun, but it's not fun if it's not your thing. I've seen with extras who want to become actors. I am telling you, when you do this retake, they get bored and they're tired. And I say, think about us. So if it's not your thing, you'll not do it.
Totally.
And if you go to do it for money, you'll not do it. I have done it for free. I remember we had school children from all over the country, and they wanted actors who can give their services for free. Nobody wanted to. It was only 2 of us. I did it, and that was the best production I did, where I didn't even get a cent. I knew I wasn't going to get money, but I wanted these children to be able to practice using us, and that was beautiful.
Are you still doing it for free? I just want to know.
Of course, I've just done.
Just checking.
I've just done for free for him. I've done for free for her. Today, it's not free that you want to. You are forced to do it for free.
The producer has spoken.
You are forced to do it for free. That time I wasn't forced.
But I love what you're saying about you can't do it if it's not your passion. Yeah. Yes, the money is good when the money comes. I mean, it's good to earn money. But if it's not your passion, it's not what you love. Even with us writers, and if it's not your thing, you're gonna get bored about it. I hardly sleep when I haven't cracked a story. Like, we'll be in a writing room and something just not sitting right, and you are not happy. You are like, no, it's just not. It's good, but it's not that great that I want. So I hardly sleep because I'm like, what can we do? Wake up in the morning, what can we do? You keep thinking about it. And that can only be passion, because there's no money that can keep you awake, you know, at night. Doesn't matter how much. What keeps you awake is the passion. And you don't even feel like, I've been writing for 18 years for TV besides theater, but I don't even feel like I'm working. I mean, my child feels like I'm working because I'm always on the laptop, and he's like, why are you always working? But I don't feel like I'm working. I work and I don't feel like I'm working.
It's a calling.
Yeah.
This is the calling.
Exactly.
So, Clive, what would you say to your 13-year-old self?
My 13-year-old self?
Yeah.
Sure.
Industry-wise?
Industry-wise. Yeah, I think a lot of that has been discussed here. Follow your passion. I could very easily have been spoken out of going into this industry. I think if you set your mind to it, stick to it, and learn. Just listen to people. You know, I think when you're young, you think you know everything, and that's the time that you really need to be listening to people who've done it before. So yeah, I would probably say to myself, go study film rather than drama.
Okay.
But yeah, that's a bit too late now.
Okay, Angus and Clive. So you guys write, you direct, you produce, but when you get into a set, do you take off one hat and put on another hat, or do you make sure that you just stay in your lane and you just direct and you just write and you just produce? Is that not a difficult thing to do?
I balance all the hats at the same time. Yeah. No, I definitely, everything is going on for me. I mean, I don't often direct now, because there are other directors that work on our projects, and I think it's what I do best. But so I'm not doing what I love doing most. I find writing. I mean, I think I'm an okay writer, but I find it hard. You know, I sweat when I write. I sweat much less when I direct. And producing, I've kind of been forced to learn, I suppose. You know, writing, for me, is the most important thing in a way. It's kind of without a great script, you're nowhere. I love being in a writing room where there is great chemistry. It's an incredible thing. Producing, I kind of think, you know, as a company, and I think many companies in this country sort of tend to be much more ambitious than they should be on the budgets that they work on. So that is a kind of a challenge to do great work on quite a lean budget. Is something that I find invigorating and exciting. Directing is my home base, and I wish I could do more of it, yeah.
So, what about you? Different hats, or are you utilizing all the hats when you're on set?
I love the variety. I enjoy doing all of them. The producing I like the least. Budgets and contracts and dealing with all different people who've got problems. I love the directing. I love being on the floor. But when you're on the floor, you can't really think about much else. So then you're busy working on the producing and the writing late at night and sending notes at the early hours of the morning on the writing. So yeah, I love all of them. Sometimes I do love the producing side of things, you know, the pitching and the bringing in the work. But it's hard to do all of them. But because of our industry, in a way, you have to. You know, just focusing on one particular element is probably dangerous in our industry, in our country.
Bongi, you write, you act, you produce. Usually as actors are not the best at admin and this thing, but you produce and write.
Yes.
That is quite those are quite balances of hats there.
Like Angus, I had to learn producing. I'm still learning. I mean, I'm not as experienced as these guys when it comes to producing. Why is that? I felt like you are not heard when you're not producing in this country. This country doesn't respect writers. You're not heard. Your things are not going to be expressed as you wanted them to be. And I wouldn't have gone to producing if it wasn't for that. Because I felt like, okay, you just write, and then you are shoved aside as a writer, and then the producer goes and does whatever they want. And I was like, okay, I don't like that. Let me see what producing is about. And that's where it came from. Seriously, truth be told, I wouldn't have done it if it wasn't for that. If writers, because that's my passion, that's my number one passion. Acting, yeah, I do it, but it's not something that I chase. I don't chase acting anymore. I act for fun. But writing is my real passion. Producing is starting now to be my passion because I know what I've seen in my vision before I put it on paper, it's going to be executed as I've seen it. And you will have the control and a say because you are producing as well. Whereas before, I used to just write and I look at what I've written, I'm just like, but this was not what it is, but this was not what it is, and get disappointed all the time. So that's why I went to producing. It is quite a difficult thing with admin because you have to control the money, you have to control the casting, you have to control people's lives. And it becomes very, very tricky to make those decisions, which is something that I'm still growing a lot at. But I am kind of enjoying it from the creative part of it. I love that creative part of it, of knowing what should be done. And also, nice thing about a producer who's also a writer is that when things don't go right, I'm there on set and I change it on script and I know what I do. Instead of somebody else changing my script and I'm not there, because that pisses me off. I always don't like that. Like, you know, an actor mustn't change my script. Nobody must change my script. I don't like that. Clive knows. I throw a tantrum. I write long emails and phone. But it's nice when I'm there because then I know what is happening, what can be done. That's not going to affect the story on a bad way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bongi, when you say you get angry when someone changes your script, as an actor, I find that a written language and a spoken language are two different things because when I act, I translate the meaning of what you wrote, not your words.
Totally.
So I always change the words.
Totally. But
is that bad?
That's not bad. There is spoken language. That is why even in writing, I encourage writers that I work with. I'm like, read your script. I know it's old-fashioned, but I still do it. I read my scripts out loud so that I can hear what is it that I'm still that writer. I know most writers now, they just write and send. But I still read my scripts out loud. But here's the thing. Not all actors are great in interpretation. So that is why if we had money in this country, you should have a creative producer who's on set, who is in the writing and also on set. That is very important because there's a gap that gets, interpretation gets missed. There's a big gap in this country. And then viewers see something else and they go, oh, these writers are so stupid. They don't know that who broke the interpretation. Because some of the actors are not like you, Mama. Some of them are not smart. Some of them are not very good. You are amazing. Some of them like to change things when they haven't read what's coming or where did it come from, and they give a bad interpretation. That is why really, really we should have creative producers who are there on set all the time. so that they know what's happening in the creation of the character, in the creation of the story. What is the journey going? Where is it going? What are the things that... I'm not saying we can't tweak. That is why when there's a creative producer, that becomes a conversation. But if you're just going to have someone saying, I don't feel like saying this line, I want to say it like this. What if you've changed the whole thing that is coming up? What's going to happen now?
Exactly.
Just picking up on what Bongi said about writers not being heard and writers not being respected, I think generally in this country, there isn't enough emphasis on creating new writers and building new writers. And the writing is a make or break. You can have the best actor and the best director. If the script is rubbish, it's going to fall apart. And unfortunately, for some reason, there's in the industry, there's a culture of we'll pay the writers as little as possible and give them a shorter period as possible to write. And it should be the other way around. The writers should be paid more, and there should be more time set aside for the creation, the story lining, and the creating of the story Bible, and then the scripts. And for some reason, there just isn't enough time, there isn't enough respect paid to what the writers do. And until that changes, and it's changed slightly, but it's not changed nearly enough. The caliber of the work is not going to get to where it should be.
So we're getting into the B word, which comes up all the time. And when you speak to producers, 1, 2, 3 producers, and other times there's always the argument between agents and managers and actors about budget. All right, let's talk about the budget part of it. Budget. Who controls what the sum of money is that has been used for production? Who controls that? How does that work? Because a lot of people I don't think, understand that process.
So, I mean, it's clear. In this country, broadcasters control that.
Yep.
And broadcasters have had a kind of monopoly where there's been attempts to break that monopoly. The producers have failed. So it is very much a broadcasting thing. And in the years that I've worked in drama, what has happened is budgets have got leaner and leaner and leaner. I mean, the first drama series that we did was Yizo Yizo, and we had a year to research and write each of those 13 episodes. So there's nobody that's given that kind of luxury nowadays. I mean, with the exception, at the moment, we are working on a project on Shaka, and we've spent 4 years on the writing and research. But it's not how it is in the industry at the moment. At the moment, invariably, broadcasters will leave it until it is actually too late to give you a green light. So suddenly you are scrambling to put a writing team together and to develop the scripts. And very often you go into production not feeling comfortable or not feeling comfortable with where you are in the scripting process. And I do think that we're in a moment where the streamers are going to hopefully change that. And with real competition facing the local broadcasters, they will have to start taking those things more seriously. Okay. So I see the potential for change.
Change. Because a lot of the times, us actors get a budget, get a fee, and the first people we blame is you guys. So actually, it isn't you guys.
No, it's people have got there's a misnomer about the producers getting this huge whack of money, putting all of it aside and just giving out the little bits and pieces.
That's what I thought my entire life.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting now that you're producing, Bongi, maybe you see the other side of it. And the moment people, and we're actually very open with our budgets now. We actually show everybody the internal team. We show them the budget. We say, okay, this is what we've got. This is what's been signed off. We don't show it to everybody, but I'm talking about our internal team. So they know what we're dealing with. And often what people don't realize is that as producers, we often subsidize the budgets for the broadcasters because we want to get a better writer in and we want to get a better actor in. And we feel that the DOP needs to be paid X amount and the broadcaster will only allow so much. And we actually end up subsidizing and sometimes to a great amount because we want to get better people in. And yeah, I think people need to understand that the producers, we're just not getting enough to make the shows of the caliber that we want. And if we want to increase and improve on the caliber, we'll end up subsidizing it. And yeah, I don't know how that changes until I hope Angus is right and that the streamers will change the broadcasters. because they need to be more competitive, and for that we need to pay people more.
Oh, okay, perfect. I've learned something now because I've
And
always...
what is worse, my baby? I produced squeezers, I'm sure you know. Like Angus says, the budgets are becoming leaner. The broadcasters really are ripping us off in that, for instance, I'll make an example. They give you a 7 mil budget. And then we black producers don't have our own studios.
Yeah.
I go to Clive, he charges me 2 mil for his studio. I go to him for editing. By the time I come down to producing, I cannot pay the actors. I have to beg my friend, please, I know you are worth so much, but can you... We're doing that all the time. And by the time you finish, you've got no profit. And should you make any profit, they want it all. As a result, if you bought this for 10 rand, you have to save 50 rand just so you can have profit, which is ugly. And also, what is worse, which really hurts me, in advertising, if you've done a commercial, when they repeat it, they are the first ones to call you to say, here's your purchase order, here's what, and this is the amount we are going to pay you. Please send us an invoice. With the SABC, you see your thing playing. You say you want to invoice. They say, no, no, no. It's still on TV when it's finished. And then you do other things. By the time you want your repeats, it's like they live in another world, you live in a different world. Yeah. They want what time, when, who did it. I mean, I did Mupeme before you were born. Right now, I want my repeat fees. They want the contract. And Scrubs died long ago, even the studio is not there. But they themselves have been playing it. Why can't they go into their own and see what they played? Yes. So it's just an excuse for not wanting to pay us. What is worse, today, Encore plays most of the things that we did. We don't get any royalties for that.
How can we improve how actors are being treated in this country?
I think we must go and just kill them.
The comment of the series.
And get new people.
Actors, just kill them.
And get new people.
Okay.
Who will...
Kill the actors or kill the...
No, kill the broadcasters.
The broadcasters, okay.
Have new ones that will put themselves in our shoes, know that if we have repeats, it's their responsibility to tell us and to pay us. But I'm telling you have to go to the police station, swear by Holy 10 Bibles and all that, and still not get what you are. I know. I really don't know. Those people have got no respect for actors.
If Dr. Lillian Dube is not getting... If you or not,
yes.
Could you imagine how...
Exactly my point. Really, sometimes I feel like going there naked and just saying, come, let's fight.
Why naked?
So that when they fight with me, they can't hang on to my dress.
Amazing. Guys, there must have been a moment in your careers when you knew, because I think a lot of us people in the industry suffer from imposter syndrome when you're like, am I really? What moment did you know, Bongi, what moment did you know that, okay, cool, this is my job, I'm meant to do this, I'm not faking it, imposter, stop doing this?
Working with Zeximda, having a call from Zeximda made me like, oh,
That's
okay.
That's early in your industry?
Yeah, because I wrote that play sitting in a flat in Yeovil, not getting jobs, having my sister paying my rent. And I was just writing because I didn't want to be depressed. And I said, what can I do? My sister had an old PC, and I started typing, I was writing. So when you realize that people like what you've written, you're just like, this is what I want to do. This is really, I mean, from then I already had an acting agent. She was calling me for auditions. I didn't go there. I was just like, yeah, it's okay. I'm writing now. And then at that time, and also Zeximda said to me, you're a good writer, but you're lazy. And then I stopped being lazy. He told me that because he said, you're lazy, you write a nice story, but it doesn't have depth. And he said, you are very lazy, and he's a very tough guy. And then I stopped being lazy, and I said, okay, those words just put a fire under my bum, and I've never, ever stopped.
Okay. You had Velapi from an early time in your career. That I'm sure that told you, oh, I can do this.
I don't know if you ever get to that point where you think I can do this. I think we learn new things every day. I love to surround myself with young people, and especially young black people now, because I learn so much. And I don't know if you ever get to a stage where you think, I can really do this. I think the fact we've been around for over 30 odd years, our company, I think, makes me feel that we must be doing something right and that we get people coming back over and over. But I ask myself all the time, you know, why did we do that? Could we do that better? You never feel that you've, I don't know. I personally don't feel ever that I can turn around and say, okay, I really know. I think we just learn all the time.
Angus, you? Was there a job that you were like, okay, I'm not too bad at this?
I agree with Clive. I think that I feel like I'm learning all the time. And I feel that projects come together, and sometimes, I keep on using the word chemistry, but sometimes the chemistry is incredible. You bring together a cast and a set of writers and a crew that just make magic. And then you go again and you think, okay, I'm going to put all those things back together, but somehow that energy doesn't happen. And so it's not quite the thing that you did before. So in a way, I think there's always a vulnerability.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'm bulletproof. Like, I've never felt that. And I suppose another thing is I've always felt like I don't want to be afraid to fail.
Agreed.
Because I want to try and do new things. And if you explore new territory, often you trip up.
Yeah.
And I suppose I try and remind myself all the time to be prepared to trip up and fail. That's true. Yeah.
All right. Mama Lillian, Generations, Soul City, right? Those were big shows for you. Which one of those shows did you think you were like, this is the one?
All of them. I loved Generations, and I was paid very well. The first money I ever saw was in Generations, and I did things with it, and I'll always be grateful. Soul City, I'm alive today because of Soul City, because my character had cancer, and you know how directors are. This director wanted me to cry when I hear that I've got cancer. Hey, he really made me. Because of Soul City, I got to know what to look for, especially with breast cancer, because in the initial stages, it is not so. You're just normal, unless you know what to look for. And then because of Soul City, I got my own lump, and I started going for mammograms early. As a result, when I went, because I saw something, they were able to compare my previous X-ray plates with their present one. So I am very grateful for having done Soul City. And like I say, I wasn't kidding. I love Generations. It was the first time that I saw myself in a glamorous setting and all that. I enjoyed it. And then Soul City, I enjoyed it. I even stopped smoking for 3 years.
So literally...
because I was educating people on the illness of smoke. Except I got bored.
But that's beautiful, because literally for many of us, this industry saved our lives. Like, what would you be doing if it wasn't for this industry?
Yeah.
Exactly.
What kind of person would you be if it wasn't for this? And
so, but I want you to ask me a question I know you are not going to ask me. Ask me about Mopeme.
Mopeme. Tell me about Mopeme.
Mopeme?
Yeah, Mopeme.
You know, after Mopeme, I said, if I don't act anymore, I'm okay. I gave it my all. And Bob Riley, the amazing thing, sweetheart, you can be the best actor. It takes a director, a good director, to bring that out. One director who still does that for me now, a very young director, is Aze Uga. After working with Aze, when I look at myself, I can't believe it's me. So I'm able to enjoy what I'm watching with other people. Because, for instance, I can cry. I do my crying in the rain because of my childhood. So if you give me something and you expect me to cry, I won't cry. But Aze made me cry. I used tear stick me. But with Aze, and he's patient. And then he'll make you do something that you think, what for? But only after will you see he's the best. So I am saying if you are an actor, it doesn't matter how good you are. You still depend on a good director. Am I wrong?
I think different actors are different. I think some actors have really good instincts. I think is what you're talking about. And other actors have great talent, but bad instincts. And I kind of, as a director, I feel I look at what the actor is bringing. And sometimes I feel I'm really interested to see where they take it. And other times I feel I need to guide that person to a particular place. So
I love that.
I think it's different for different
but
the people that bring different things.
I love that, my baby, because I'll never forget Bob Riley. And he would allow you to do it your way and see, like he says, where you're getting, and then he will say, do this, do this. So it's very important. And there's one young director, I don't see him anymore. Brilliant young man. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. So it's always teamwork. You and the director agreeing. Like I said, it's okay, let's do it your way and do it my way and see where it...
Compromise.
Yes. And then he'll still have his way. But because he didn't force you, you don't see that you are doing it his way. And I love that.
So you've mentioned a lot of men when you speak. How things, because I think you guys are from different eras, both of you. And I'm talking just to the woman here. How have things changed of being a woman in the industry? I'm going to start with the one who has started, and then we're going to move there and see how the progression has been. How is it to be a woman, a black woman, especially in the olden days?
Manaka, you might not even believe me. It's amazing that in the dark days of apartheid, we used to have fun. Today is a sausage-making machine, fast. We used to do 13 episodes in 3 months. And the directors and the producers were patient with us because we were not from a film school. We were all learning on the job, and we had time on our side. I never thought of myself as a black woman on set because we used to do black productions, beautiful ones. And we were respected because that was our culture. Mostly we did things that reflected our culture. So it was comfortable. Today, you have to do things that you don't even understand yourself, because for me, if I don't understand what's written, there's no way I'm going to be able to play it. If you force me, I will give you, but it won't be what it should be. So during the apartheid days, things were different in that white people were kinder. Right now, they are so afraid. It's like, let's make money and...
White people were kinder during apartheid. Now they just want to make money.
Listen, very kind indeed. During a rap party, they would hire a combi for us, and they'd hire someone who doesn't drink, and they would buy booze and food. And I remember when they had a speed fry, I would ask for the bones. There were no bones, it was actually meat. And then ask for serviettes as well. I say, yo, your dog also uses serviettes. Life was beautiful. Wow. Life was beautiful. There was love. I don't find that love now.
That is
I really don't. And the funny thing is that we were supposed not to be happy because it was black and white. And yet we were more together. So much that I remember when we were overseas doing Call Up and Die, people in London didn't believe that we come from South Africa, because all they knew is that apartheid, blacks and white don't mix. But the way we were like so, they couldn't believe it. The blacks and whites then. I remember, as I'm talking to you, I can see Mr. Haynes, what a lovely old man. It was just love. And we were doing what we loved and working together. Today, I don't see it.
Wow. What do you think still has to be done?
She wasn't there. She's a baby.
No. I wasn't going to ask you about that time.
I'm just like, what happened to the love?
Go on. About women, getting women in the room, and how are women being treated in the industry, creating more... There's a lot more female writers now. Should we not be getting more female characters and more opportunities? How is it to be a woman in this industry?
Getting women in the room has increased. They are in the room. We are black women. How they treated is a different thing. You know, how they listened to is a different thing. I remember when I was on Generations, and also there's a different treatment from white women and black women, you know. And I'm like wondering, you guys lived a good life. Because me, I don't know that. When I started in the industry,
Generations was the best.
I was treated very badly. And I'm going to say it because I remember I had a friend of mine, she's late now, who was a writer. And she also was a head writer for Igoli at some point, Elsa B. And I would say something in the room, and I'll say to her, I'll say it, and then feel what happens, and then you say it. I'll say something in the room. This was Generations. And I'll suggest something. And then there'll be silence. And then people will just move on and talk about something else.
Hi. Wait, there were black men in there and they said nothing.
There were black men in the room and they will say nothing. I have a gripe with black men because they do not protect black women.
But they still don't say. Black men still
don't
say anything.
And then I would nudge Elsa B and I say the same thing that I said. And then there'll be a reaction. Yes. Oh, yes, let's start engaging. Let's start talking about it. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, but I just said the same thing. We are invisible as black women, and that is a fact, and that is the truth. Yes, we are in the rooms, but we're invisible.
Is that unconscious bias?
As big as I am, I'm very invisible.
You're beautiful, and you are beautiful. Wait a minute. Do you think that's unconscious bias? Or do you think it's conscious?
I also feel very sad because I feel like sometimes they don't even realize that they're doing it. I mean, I'll tell you because I've been a head writer for many shows. I've gotten into some shows where a man, whether a white man or a black man, has been a head writer, or one of them comes after me. And they haven't done the groundwork. There's no story Bible, there's no character bio, there's no whatever. It's just like we just write and keep going. And I come and I do those things, and then you find even the broadcaster puts pressure on me, and I'm like, you had a guy who was before me and you didn't ask them these things. Why now I have these deadlines? You must do this and you must do that. Yes, we must do it because it's part of our job. But why is it not us of a man? Why is that?
How can we fix this? What is the answer here? Well, let's get answers here. Come on, we know the problem.
They must just make us visible as black women. And I mean, I'm not even isolating and saying women are treated differently, even money-wise. I mean, I've been told to my face that you're still too young to earn this money by a producer.
No.
You know, and I know the person who was before me, who was a man, how much they were earning. And I wanted that money. Why am I not getting it? And I didn't get it. And it has taught us as well that we also go into the room feeling like we're beggars, like, oh my God. For me, yes, I love money because I have to look good and this costs money. But, but sometimes I do a show, even if it's not paying me a lot, because I love the story, I love the premise of it. When I love something and I know I can do something because I want to say something to the people out there, I will do that show without the money. But I don't like it when you can give a man a certain amount of money, but you don't want to give me the money.
Agreed.
And it's not about greed, it's just about why. You know, I feel like as a black woman, you always have to prove yourself. All this, even with broadcasters. I've seen when I go to pitch to broadcasters, my goodness, as a black woman, you'll be asked everything. Where is the story starting? Where is the middle? Where is the end? And then I've come with a lot of white producers to pitch. We don't get asked that. And they will deny it, I know, because I've been in those rooms. But when I come with my black sisters, we will be asked the thing that we'd say as black people, ipasnes patient, they will be asking you everything.
Pasela.
Yes, everything.
Yeah.
You just
it's like they want you to fail.
They want you, they will ask you everything. Then when I come with a white producer, you're not asked all those things. And it's like, hey, guys, why? Why? So, yes, there's many of us in the room, but I would not say the treatment has changed very much, except for the estate. I was treated so well. Thank you, Clive.
And after that, adding that, looking to Clive on the right.
And Clive, how come you have never given me work?
It's a very good question. I was asking myself that question.
I
think you must hire this one.
We have to find something.
You have to, at least Angus has.
Yeah.
Talking about business opportunities, there's been a hashtag open up the industry. that has been going and trending. Sometimes they make good points, sometimes they talk nonsense online, and sometimes you're like, come to do my job and see if you can do it before. How can we get new, fresh talent in the industry, untapped talent to come through? Because we were able to find this Dumo, Palance, incredible performers, which you've worked with lots. You're working with Dumo right now. Great performers who are found,
Fantastic.
you know, on reality shows.
You're talking about actors now more than producers.
Actors now, actors.
Okay. So it's very tough because you're stuck between a rock and a hard place in that when you pitch a show to a broadcaster, they want to play safe. So they want to play with people that they know and people who've got a following. And when you suggest new people, they go, but nobody knows them. But how are people going to know them unless you give them a chance? So one understands, because the broadcasters, no matter what we say about the budgets, they're still putting money forward. And they want to protect their investment. So they want to have people that they know. They want to have a safe bet. But slowly, you know, when you have a successful show, you can start to bring in young people because the show's going and it's got a following. But in the beginning, it's very, very hard. So it's very, very tough. I remember when we were doing Backstage, 1877.
I wanted to be on Backstage so bad. Oh my goodness, I wanted that so bad as a kid.
We did a competition to bring in a new actor. We had people sending in auditions, and I think that's Leroy Gopal was found that way. And so there are ways to bring in young actors, but it's very hard. It's very, very hard. Also, you can land up in trouble with a new young actor because they can do well in an audition, they can maybe even be qualified, and they come in the camera roles and they fall apart, and they just don't, you know, they don't know how to do it. So it's very, very tricky bringing new people in. It's not easy.
It's a risk.
May I pick up on something that
anything.
Lillian said earlier on? She spoke about young producers landing up with nothing at the end. We've got a problem. You know, we need to encourage young black producers in the country. But what happens is exactly what you were saying, and I think it's just very, very important, in that they don't have their own studios, they don't have their own edit suites, they don't have their own cameras. So, and they're given a budget, and I'm not talking about any in particular broadcaster, I'm just saying in general. And they've got to do the show with this budget. They have no experience, so they don't know how to save money or spend money or work with money. They are not, there's no way for them to actually succeed. They're almost set up for failure. And we get so many calls from young black producers who are saying, like, I'm doing this, I'm halfway through, I don't have enough money to get to the end. And we try help, you know, and you can only help so much because, you know, it can't be a point where we land up going under because we're helping people, but we do try and help. But there's a part in this machine that's missing that can help young black producers produce successfully, make a little bit of money, and move on. And there is very little open for them at the moment. And what's going to happen, you know, I'm grey, he's grey, we're...
Haven't you always been grey?
I was born grey.
Always.
Oh, I've only known you grey.
I was born grey.
When we're gone, you know, it's the young black producers who are going to be the trailblazers, for want of a better word. Not that I feel like a trailblazer, but, you know, who's going to be there if we're not building that community now?
Guys, this has been a very insightful conversation. I'm going to end off with one question that needs to be as concise and short and straight to the point as possible. Your answer needs to be...
Do I have to answer? Can I just keep quiet?
No, never. We can't. You're the doctor here. Who is your favorite actress and why?
Mary Twala.
Who's your favorite producer, director, or writer? Oh. Can be Indian. Can be a producer, can be a writer, can be a director.
In this country?
Anywhere.
Yeah, go on to Clive and I'll think about it. Yeah.
Producer, writer, actor. I'm a producer, but producer, writer, or director?
So my young partner, Dom Gumede, he's all of 30-something years old, 33, I think. And I think he's actually lying to us. I think he's actually 50-odd. Because he has the wisdom and the knowledge.
Wow.
Oh, you've been working with him as well. He has the wisdom and the knowledge of someone who's got years of experience. And whatever you give him, he just, you know, he just blows you away. And so, you know, I would say it even if he wasn't my partner. I would say that because he's just something exceptional. He's exceptional. But there are many.
My favorite writer, you know, is the late Christian Blomkamp, and also another one who's a friend of mine as well, Chisanga Kabinga, because we're very honest with each other. Christian, we were very honest with each other. We fought a lot, Christian Blomkamp, a lot. But it was always on the how to better ourselves as writers. So he was my favorite. Chisanga Kabinga is the same thing. Even when I get an idea, I talk to her and say, oh, don't you think da-da-da-da? She does the same thing.
We had on the show.
Yeah, she's amazing.
You hear the two of them together, Chisanga and Bongi.
Oh, she was sitting right there.
Yes.
She's a powerhouse.
She is. So those are really, really my favorite people when it comes to producing. And I'm saying this because even if you fight with people, like I said with Christian, we fought a lot. There'll be times where we don't speak for like 2 months because we fought. You know, when we were working together, we banged doors at each other's faces. But that fire was the greatest fire that we had between us. Producing, I'll say Roberta Durant. She taught me a lot.
That's a big call.
She taught me a lot.
a hustler.
And she is. And I've had so many disagreements with her, but I learned a lot from her. So I would say she is my favorite. And of course now Clive, but he still doesn't want me to be a producer in his shows, so I don't know.
I do.
Here it comes. And you, any last comment there?
Well, they kind of guided me there a little. I mean, my own partners, Teboko and Desiree, Teboko and I share a sensibility in a way. So it's always been fabulous working with him. Desiree has taught me enormous amounts. I think I've taught her as well, in the sense that I came from the creative space, she came from the producing space, and we've kind of taught each other things, I think. But Clive's point, Dom is a person that I've watched for some years and have been a little jealous of you. And Dom is working with me at the moment, and I do think he is a 50-year-old, or is it a 64-year-old in a 30-year-old body. I think he's an extraordinary being. So there's our answer.
Guys, I just want to take a moment to thank you all for doing what you're doing, for the industry, for everything that you've done. I look forward to your futures. I look forward to what's still to come. I look forward to you continuously being an activist and doing incredible things. You creating content, giving opportunities, and making sure that women get the right opportunities. That is the episode of Insight, all about trailblazers, legends, incredible humans. Thank you so much to the Royalty Soapy Awards at NVF. What an episode. It's great. I would love to do it again. Let's do it again, guys, soon. Please, let's do it again.
Go now if you want.
Oh, let's go again. Cheers, guys. Enjoy.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was the longest hour of my life.